Case summary: R.A.V. City of St. Paul is a significant U.S. Supreme Court case decided in 1992. The court struck down a St. Paul, Minnesota, city ordinance that prohibited the display of symbols such as a burning cross or Nazi swastika, which arouses anger, alarm, or resentment in others on the basis of race, color, creed, religion, or gender. The Supreme Court held that the ordinance was overly broad and content-based, thus violating the First Amendment. Background facts: claimant plaintiff, R.A.V., a minor at the time, defendant, City of St. Paul, Minnesota. Facts: in June 1990, a group of teenagers, including R.A.V., assembled a crude cross from chair legs and burned it on the front lawn of an African-American family's home in St. Paul, Minnesota. R.A.V. was charged under St. Paul's bias-motivated crime ordinance, which prohibited symbols that incite anger, alarm, or resentment in others based on race, color, creed, religion, or gender. The case was escalated to the U.S. Supreme Court to determine if the ordinance violated the First Amendment rights of free speech. Argument: claimant's argument, R.A.V. The ordinance was content-based, selectively prohibiting speech based on the subjects it addressed. It violated the First Amendment by restricting speech based on its expressive content, which is not permissible under constitutional law. Defendant's argument: City of St. Paul. The ordinance was necessary to protect minority groups from hate speech and symbols that could lead to violence and societal unrest. The city argued that the ordinance was a permissible regulation of fighting words, which are not protected under the First Amendment. Final outcome and legal justification. Final outcome: the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously struck down the St. Paul bias-motivated crime ordinance. Legal justification: overbreadth doctrine. The court found the ordinance to be overly broad as it prohibited more speech than necessary to achieve its goal of preventing hate speech. Content-based restriction. The ordinance was deemed content-based because it selectively prohibited speech based on its expressive content. This type of restriction requires strict scrutiny, the highest standard of judicial review, which the ordinance failed to meet. Viewpoint discrimination. The ordinance was considered a form of viewpoint discrimination because it only prohibited speech that expressed specific viewpoints of hatred or bias. First Amendment protections. The court emphasized that even abhorrent speech is protected under the First Amendment, and any restriction on speech must be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling state interest. Key concept implication of the case: R.A.V. City of St. Paul is a pivotal case reinforcing the principle that laws restricting speech must not be content-based or overly broad. It underscores the importance of the First Amendment's protection of free speech even when the speech is offensive or hateful. Key learnings: laws regulating speech must be carefully crafted to avoid unconstitutional content-based restrictions. Even speech that society widely condemns must be protected under the First Amendment unless it falls into a specific exception like true threats or fighting words. Viewpoint discrimination is a significant concern in First Amendment jurisprudence, and any regulation must be neutral concerning the viewpoint being expressed.